The sun hung low over the Arizona sky, bleeding its last gold across the desert when Ethan Cole, a quiet rancher known more for his patience than his gun, spotted two figures stumbling along the scrubland near his homestead. Dust clung to their hair, their moccasins were torn, and though they tried to stay upright, their legs trembled with each step. Ethan slowed his horse, recognizing from their dress that they were young Apache women, barely older than 20. Their faces, though exhausted, remained proud and alert, eyes sharp, scanning for danger, even as their bodies threatened to collapse. Ethan knew the tension of the frontier, how misunderstandings could spark violence, but something in their posture told him they were running from danger, not bringing it. He dismounted quietly and approached with open hands, speaking softly. "You look like you need water. My cabin is close. You're safe there." They hesitated, exchanging glances, wary, defensive, yet too weary to refuse the offer. Finally, the older one nodded slightly, placing a hand over her sister's shoulder as Ethan helped them onto his horse. Back at the cabin, the women could barely stand. Ethan guided them inside, offering the only two real beds he had. He laid blankets over them, set out water and jerky, and kept a respectful distance despite the close quarters. Their breathing slowed as exhaustion claimed them, the flickering lantern casting soft shadows across their faces. Ethan sat at the far wall, loading his rifle, not to threaten them, but to stay alert. The frontier was unpredictable, and any sign of Apache, women so far from their territory, meant something was terribly wrong. Indeed, as they slept, one of the women murmured in Apache, her voice trembling with fear. Ethan wished he understood her words. Outside, the desert night thickened. Coyotes sang. Wind rustled through the mesquite. Ethan tried to rest, but unease gnawed at him. Who were these women? Why were they alone? And where was their family? As he pondered, a distant tremor rolled across the ground, the unmistakable thudding rhythm of horses. Ethan froze. That many hooves meant one thing: warriors. Apache warriors. He dashed to the window, just as the moonlight revealed silhouettes, dozens of riders sweeping across the open plain like a rising storm, and at their front rode a man with a war lance adorned with eagle feathers, his expression fierce, determined, protective. The exhausted women woke at the sound, fear momentarily sparking in their eyes until they realized who had come. They sat up weakly, relief washing over their faces. Ethan, however, felt his pulse hammering. He had saved them, yes, but to their father he might look like a captor. He stepped slowly outside, raising both hands high, his rifle left behind. The riders fanned out in a wide semicircle, surrounding him until the night air crackled with tension. Their leader dismounted, towering with authority, his eyes sharp and unreadable. "Why are my daughters in your home?" he demanded in a controlled but dangerous voice. Ethan swallowed, speaking plainly. They were exhausted, nearly collapsed. I offered them shelter, nothing more. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then one of the daughters stepped forward unsteadily, placing her hand on her father's arm and speaking softly in Apache. Her tone was grateful, peaceful. The father's expression shifted slightly, his rigid anger dissolving into cautious understanding. He turned his gaze back to Ethan. "You helped them," he said slowly. Even knowing the risk, Ethan nodded. They needed it. For the first time, the father looked at him not as an enemy, but as a man. The tension broke like a snapped thread. The warriors lowered their weapons. The night grew still. The father pressed his palm to his chest in a gesture of respect. "You have shown honor," he said. "For that, my people will remember your name." But Ethan did not feel heroic, only relieved. He had acted on instinct, compassion, and the simple belief that no one deserved to suffer alone in the desert. That night, as the Apache prepared to escort the women home, the father invited Ethan to share their fire on the plain. And so the rancher who had expected death instead found unexpected allies, beginning a story that would echo through the frontier as the night stretched long in the flames, painted shifting patterns across the sand. Ethan never forgot the feeling of sitting among the Apache that night, the mix of unease, curiosity, and quiet respect that flowed like an unseen river among them. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the sky as the daughters sat close to their father, safe again yet still shaken, when Ethan asked softly what had happened to them. The father, whose name was Dakota, studied him carefully before answering. "My daughters were out gathering plants at the base of the mountains. Scouts of a rival band stumbled across them. They ran, but they could not outrun horses. His jaw tightened. If not for you, their fate might have been different. Ethan nodded, absorbing the weight of the situation. The women sat silent, eyes lowered, but there was gratitude in their expressions. As dawn approached, the warriors prepared to leave. Dakota invited Ethan to follow them for a few miles so they could speak more privately. Together they rode toward a ridge overlooking the valley, the morning sun stretching across the horizon like a great red blanket. When they dismounted, Dakota turned to him. You showed mercy without knowing who they were. That is rare in these lands. Ethan shrugged. Maybe, but tired is tired. Fear is fear. Doesn't matter whose people you come from. Dakota smiled faintly at that. A rare, real smile. You understand more than most. Before departing, Dakota gave Ethan a carved wooden token, shaped like a small shield with a sun symbol etched into its surface. Carry this, he said. If ever you encounter our warriors, show them this, and they will know you are a friend. Ethan accepted it with humility, but before he could say more, the younger daughter approached him. She bowed her head respectfully and said in quiet English, Thank you for letting us rest. You gave us your bed when you had no reason to trust us. We will not forget. Then she returned to the group, leaving Ethan with a feeling he couldn't quite describe, something between awe and responsibility. Weeks passed and life on the ranch returned to normal. Ethan worked his fields, repaired his cabin roof, and tended to his cattle. But every now and then he caught himself staring toward the distant mountains, wondering how the Apache family was doing. One evening, trouble arrived, in the form of a group of armed settlers who rode into his property shouting about Apache raids. Ethan tried to reason with them, insisting that peace was possible, but the men were too heated, fueled by rumor and fear. When they asked if he had seen any Apache nearby, Ethan subtly touched the token in his pocket and lied. Not around here. They left disappointed but suspicious. 2 days later, Ethan saw dust rising on the horizon again. Not settlers, but the Apache. Dakota and several warriors approached calmly on horseback. Ethan stepped out to meet them without fear. Dakota dismounted, his expression grave. We heard settlers came here, he said. They search for reasons to start conflict. We want no war, but trouble may come. Ethan nodded, frustration burning in him. They're scared, and fear makes fools out of men. Dakota placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. If they come again, call for us. You helped my family. Now we help you. As the Apache prepared to leave, Dakota's daughters gave Ethan a small pouch filled with dried herbs, medicine from their tribe, a symbol of continued friendship. The father raised his hand in farewell, and the warriors rode off across the open plains, moving like shadows swallowed by the desert. Ethan watched them go with a sense of deep respect. He never asked for recognition, but he had earned something far greater: trust. Over the next months, peaceful exchanges continued. Ethan occasionally traveled to the Apache camp with supplies, and in return they taught him how to track better, how to read the desert winds, and how to understand the signs of the land in ways he had never imagined. He learned that true strength wasn't in the gun you carried, but in the bridges you built. And each time he looked at the carved token, he remembered the night two exhausted young women collapsed on his doorstep, and how a simple act of kindness changed the course of many lives. In the Wild West, legends formed quickly, but this one wasn't about violence or revenge. It was about compassion, courage, and an unlikely bond etched under the red dawn. And as the years rolled on, travelers passing through often spoke of a ranch where Apaches and settlers met not as enemies, but as allies, thanks to one man who offered his bed to strangers and gained the respect of a nation